After Bai Yuiguang passed away, Gusun became mute. For years into our marriage, he remained distant and indifferent, never bothering about me, but later, I overheard his friends teasing him, "President Gu, you must be suffocating, playing mute at home every day." With a cool voice, the supposedly mute Gusun replied, "I'm not pretending to be mute, I just despise everything related to her." When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the time before Bai Yuiguang's death. I pushed him towards Bai Yuiguang, yet, he trembled and asked me, "Why do you want to push me towards someone else?" On Gusun's birthday, I prepared a birthday gift for him. I made a variety of delicious dishes, but after waiting for a long while, he was nowhere to be seen. The food turned cold. I found out from one of his friends that Gusun was at the Chenyun bar. Feeling desolate, I numbly headed there. Inside the private room, the atmosphere was lively with drinks flowing freely. Laughter and voices of men and women filled the room, all friends of Gusun. Just as I was about to push the door open, I slightly nudged it, and the voices inside became clearer. I heard one of Gusun's close friends joking, "President Gu, you must be suffocating, playing mute at home every day." At that moment, a chill ran through me. Someone chimed in, "Exactly, when Sue is too domineering, I wouldn't want to live with her either." "Son, how long do you plan on playing mute?" "It's been 4 years." I had hurried over, worried about Gusun's health, fearing the alcohol might harm him. My legs went weak, and I clenched my fists tightly, digging my nails into my palms to stifle my voice. Inside, the supposedly mute Gusun's voice was cold, "I'm not pretending to be mute, I just despise everything related to her." He suddenly laughed mockingly, "She's so foolish, she hasn't realized that I've been pretending to be mute for 4 years. Yes, son, you recovered a month after the car accident. And when Sue didn't notice at all, if it weren't for Xia Yunchun, you wouldn't have to settle for her. Let's not talk about when Sue today, it's your birthday." Gusun's face turned grim as he lifted his glass and drank. It was strange, from this distance, through the gap in the door, I could still see the redness in Gusun's eyes. It was truly ridiculous. Over these 4 years, I really thought that the shock had rendered Gusun mute for life. But I didn't care about that. So what if he couldn't speak? I could speak. So, I talked to him every day, trying to amuse him. I would talk about the day's events, I would voluntarily make soup for him, helping him maintain good health, hoping that one day, I might have a place in his heart. For years, even a stone should have warmed up by now. But there was one name I never dared to touch, Xia Yunchun, Gusun's Bai Yuiguang, the real owner of this bar. And someone I could never compare to. I closed the door. And the voices inside were instantly cut off. I couldn't hear the mockery anymore. My head spun dizzyingly. Someone behind me seemed to call out "President Wen," but I was too overwhelmed to care. Staggering to the roadside, I shakily pulled out my phone from my pocket. My fingers trembled, my vision blurred. Suddenly, I realized my blood sugar was dropping. I took out a piece of candy and put it in my mouth. Finally, I managed to send a message to Gusun. "Gusun, let's get a divorce, for his birthday." I gave him a gift, a divorce agreement. I didn't ask for much, just the villa we had lived in for 4 years. It was at that moment I finally realized with clarity that I could never measure up to someone deceased, neither in the past nor in the future. Suddenly, a bright light shone, and I saw a truck heading towards me. Behind me was a familiar yet strange voice, shouting my name, "Wen Su." When I opened my eyes again, I was back 5 years earlier. None of it had happened yet. Gusun's cherished ex hadn't passed away, we hadn't married. I was overwhelmed with immense euphoria. At that time, I had just graduated, and Gusun's family was facing a crisis. His ex had gone abroad. In my previous life, I had resolutely quit a promising job for him, to join his company and help him build it from the ground up. Due to his constant hard work and irregular diet, he suffered from severe gastritis. I made different nutritious meals for him every day, at banquets. To get those corpulent executives to sign contracts, I feared that Gusun would drink too much and upset his stomach, so I often drank on his behalf, getting those executives drunk. Perhaps Gusun was truly moved by me then. When I was vomiting badly, he didn't show any disgust. Instead, he made me tea to sober up. After a long silence, he asked me, "Wen Su, is it worth it, even drunk?" I hadn't forgotten my affection for him. I smiled with eyes crescent. "It's worth it, I like you the most, Gusun." But the emotions of that moment couldn't withstand the test of time and his longing for his ex. Later I realized, he truly wasn't worth it. This time, I wouldn't quit my job for him. My phone rang. It was Gusun. His voice sounded worn out. He asked, Did you submit your resignation? I looked at the resignation letter in my hand. If I hadn't been reborn, I would have gone straight to the CEO's office to hand in my resignation letter. Then, despite the CEO's attempts to retain me, I would have decisively gone to a fledgling company. His ex would have been robbed and murdered abroad. Gusun would never recover, turning mute. In the end, I coerced and cajoled him into marrying me. I chuckled. Gusun, I just messaged your ex about your situation. She said she will come back. From now on, let her be with you. There was a long silence on the other end, probably furrowing his brow. He asked in a deep voice, "What do you mean by this?" Word by word, I replied, "What I mean is, whoever wants to resign can resign. I am not quitting my job at a Fortune 500 company." He couldn't say more. I had already hung up the phone. The frustration in my chest dissipated a bit with those words. Suddenly, a familiar deep voice came from behind. He asked with a smile, "Do you like this job that much?" I turned around, locking eyes with Shin Qinglan. His eyes twinkled with amusement. I remembered in my past life, there were many who kicked me when I was down. Many doubted my relationship with Gusun, but when I drank till my stomach bled, and still couldn't secure that contract, it was Shin Qinglan who spoke well of me, and only much later did I discover, originally, that executive had planned to collaborate with him. It was his suggestion that convinced the executive to sign the deal with me. Until my death in that previous life, I never had the chance to thank him. I couldn't help but my eyes slightly teared up, and I bowed deeply to him. "Mr. Shin," Shin Qinglan said, "although I don't know why you are thanking me, there's no need, save such grand gestures for my funeral." I fell silent. "You deserve to be single even after I'm gone. It started when I met Gusun in college. I've always liked him, but back then, his affection for Xia Yunchun was the talk of the school, stormy and widespread. Groups of people even set up a confession wall just to keep up with their relationship status. Unfortunately, they never ended up together. I thought I might have a chance. After graduation, I still lingered around Gusun. Every time his friends saw me, they would tease, 'Oh, look, it's Sun's little tail again. She's not as pretty as Xia Yunchun. Why didn't you bring Xia Yunchun along?' They never really saw me as a person, just someone to mock for fun at gatherings. When I got upset, Gusun just frowned. 'Don't make a scene.' They didn't mean it. Some people, no matter what they do, just lose their rationality when it comes to love. I kept lowering my standards for him, but not anymore. I continued working at Shin Corporation, thinking that with Gusun's proud nature, he would never come looking for me. But one day after work, a familiar car stopped abruptly in front of me, nearly hitting my legs. The window rolled down, revealing Gusun's stern face. Frowning impatiently, he asked, "Wen Xiao, what are you playing at? Was your resignation just a joke? Was everything you said about liking me and wanting to help me at the company all just a game?" I smiled brightly. "Yes, why don't you bite me? With such a good offer, I'd have to be kicked in the head by you to follow you into a startup." Gusun was stunned, unable to comprehend my drastic change. A few seconds later, he scoffed, "Wen Xiao, playing hard to get doesn't really suit you." Then suddenly, a hand landed on my waist. A distant yet steady voice came from above, "When we have our wedding banquet, remember to bring your playing hard to get as a gift." It was Shin Qinglan. Gusun, not recognizing him, looked displeased. "Wen Xiao, who is he?" I coolly retorted. "Gusun. And who are you to me? What right do you have to question me? Xia Yunchen is coming back to the country soon. You like her so much. I hope we can clear things up before she returns. I'm not interested in being friends with someone who used to like me." Maybe I had used this tactic when I was angry before. Gusun looked at me incredulously. He scoffed, "Wen Xiao, you said you wanted to break it off with me last time, and you came back to me in less than 3 days. Are you trying the same trick again? I bet you won't last 7 days before you come back to apologize." I nodded. "All right, then just wait." I resumed my peaceful life. As I hoped, Gusun did not disturb me. I heard that his old flame, Xia Yunchun, had returned, and he even went to pick her up. That's great. The tragedy of the past life didn't happen. Xia Yunchun wouldn't die, and I wouldn't marry Gusun. A few days later, Shin Qinglan suddenly approached me. "There's a banquet on Wednesday. Would you be able to accompany me? 10 times the salary, paid daily." My eyes lit up, and I quickly agreed, bowing eagerly. This job is a piece of cake for me, simply a piece of cake. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his eyes. At the banquet, I realized something was amiss. I couldn't take 2 steps without running into a friend of Gusun. fortunately, Gusun hasn't made his comeback yet and hasn't become entangled with them. I had just come out of the restroom when I ran into Gusun head-on. His eyes were cold and stern, barely concealing his smugness. "Wen-su, it's only been 3 days, and you're already eager to admit your mistake to me," I exclaimed. "What kind of service is this? How can you be so rude?" His face turned as dark as the bottom of a pot. Suddenly, noticing the expensive gown I was wearing, he frowned. "Are you sticking around just for the money?" I looked at him with a gaze that said, "Who do you think you are? Why don't you tell me? Who do you think is more attractive, you or the money? There's no need to humiliate yourself." Perhaps he couldn't accept that someone who used to pursue him was now indifferent. Gusun said sternly, "Wen-su, how much longer will you pretend? Although Yun-chan has returned, I would welcome you back without holding grudges if you chose to return. You couldn't afford my monthly salary with all your wealth. What gives you the right to welcome me? Is it your shameless determination?" Gone were the days of being love-struck. My intelligence has now taken the high ground. Gusun's expression hardened. He stepped forward, gripping my wrist tightly, his eyes intensely fixed on me. "Wen-su, don't make me angry, Gusun, even dogs eat dog food now. Did you know?" He didn't understand at first. Why the sudden shift in topic? "What do you mean?" "I mean, if there's dog food, eat it properly. Don't go around eating someone else's crap. It's unhygienic and leaves a bad taste in your mouth, and it's unfair to Xia Yun-chun." I smiled broadly, my grin radiant and defiant. No longer was I the meek and cautious person in his presence, and besides, if I were to fancy someone, it'd be someone handsome. "How do you compare to our boss?" I said all this with a hand on my hip, without taking a breath. A faint pain emanated from my wrist. It faded as I saw a sense of belief shatter in Gusun's eyes. Suddenly, a familiar deep voice sounded from behind, its tone warm and smiling. "Wen-su, I see you do have some taste." That hand unceremoniously pulled mine from Gusun's, gently rubbing the red mark. "Does it hurt?" I looked up, somewhat startled, into Shinchinglan's eyes, my defenses dropping slightly. I nodded subconsciously. He smirked, a cold glint in his eyes. "If it hurts, hit back, and I'll raise your salary by 10,000. I rolled up my sleeves to reveal my biceps, like a mighty gorilla obeying a command. "As you wish, master." Wen-su, Gusun didn't look very pleased. Shinchinglan, on the other hand, appeared much more relaxed. Just as I was about to rush forward recklessly, he grabbed my wrist with one hand, chuckling, "How could I actually let you hit someone?" By then, a crowd had noticed the commotion. The group behind us, which included some of Gusun's friends who clearly weren't pleased to see me, had been watching for a while. One of them stepped forward. "President Shen, let's prioritize harmony. There's no need to disrupt the peace over a woman." I didn't speak. After a moment, Shen Qinglan also remained silent. Everyone was watching him. I instinctively looked up. I heard his voice say, "If he uses gender to pressure you, with me here, why wouldn't you use financial power to pressure him?" In my past life, a donkey must have kicked my brain with a whirlwind triple kick for me to have resigned. "Right, President Shen, this is unnecessary." His gaze made me extremely uncomfortable. I suddenly remembered this man's character. Back when I was with Gusun in my past life, he often made inappropriate jokes about me. After I got angry, he would just smirk and raise an eyebrow. "It's just a joke. Why are you so uptight?" Gusun typed a message for me to read. "Stop making a fuss. If you don't want to stay, just leave." In front of his girlfriend, I deliberately raised a smile and said, "You know, he has a mole with hair on his left chest. I saw a bunch of his nude videos online recently." All eyes in the room turned to me. "That guy has a girlfriend. How do I know such private details?" In my previous life, I overheard them discussing it during a brothers' gathering with Gusun, and moreover, this guy is unfaithful in relationships. The woman next to him turned pale with rage and slapped him across the face. "You scumbag." I then looked at a few others in the crowd. "Oh, and you, cheating on your brother with his girlfriend, and you, it seems like you secretly collaborated with your brother's rival, causing your brother to lose billions." They were stunned. "No, how does this woman know everything?" They were afraid I'd say even more. "Mr. Shen, please, do me a favor and stop her from continuing, will you?" Shen Qinglan laughed boldly and unrestrainedly. "In Beijing North, my Shen family reigns supreme. How much is your face worth? Should I swipe my card and pay you enough?" The room fell dead silent. That group of Gusun's friends from the previous life, all simultaneously cursed in their hearts. Why did he have to provoke that couple? Shen Qinglan really helped me out this time. Not only did he help me counter Gusun, But he also helped me regain my dignity in front of Gusen's future friends, with Shen Qinglan around. Gusen might not be able to rise again like he did in the previous life. I was satisfied, and after returning, I bowed to Shen Qinglan. "Boss, I will never forget your great kindness and life-saving grace." He coughed lightly, his face blushing slightly. "Cough. If you want to dedicate your life in return, I wouldn't mind." Meanwhile, I completed my sentence. "I'll be your servant in the next life." He frowned. "Why not in this lifetime?" I calmly replied, "Because I owe a great debt." "Are you unhappy? Should I kneel and kowtow 3 times to offer you my highest sincerity?" "That won't be necessary." Gusen has his pride. After that incident, he calmed down for a while. I happily worked at the company, where previously Shen Qinglan said that slapping someone would increase my salary by 10,000. Although I didn't get to slap anyone, he indeed gave me a raise. He said, "Consider it a reward for hearing all that gossip," as expected, without my help. And with Shen Qinglan's interference, many in the capital were wary of collaborating with Gusen. His fledgling company was in jeopardy, and I just heard that Xia Yunchen had left him. Gusen fell into a slump and didn't contact me. However, I received a call from Gusen's father. "Su, why haven't you visited recently? Your aunt and I have been talking about you every day at home. Your aunt misses you so much she can't sleep well. She's been sick and bedridden lately. Often calling your name in the middle of the night." The moment I received the call, my heart was slightly moved. In my previous life, his parents were enough reason for me to stay with Gusen. His parents were very kind to me. Every time they saw Gusen being indifferent to me, they took turns scolding him, until later, when he became mute after being stimulated, his parents couldn't bear to scold him anymore. I clenched my fist tightly, my eyes moistening. In a hoarse voice, I said, "Uncle, I'll visit you after I finish my work in a couple of days. Please take good care of your health." "All right." Hearing the happy laughter on the other end, I quietly asked, "Uncle, Gusen isn't at home, right?" There was a second of silence on the line. "He's not here. That rascal wouldn't dare to come." Su, just come over. Your uncle and aunt will always support you." Relieved by the confirmation, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I don't want to see Gusen. Nor do I want any contact with him. However, Gusen's parents were very kind to me in the past, and now his aunt is ill. If I don't visit, it would seem ungrateful. Lately, I've been thinking about becoming independent. Originally, following Gusen allowed me to learn a lot and come into contact with many things. I can confidently say that my business skills are solid. I had discussed this earlier with Shen Qinglan, who smiled and said, "When Su, from the start, I knew your potential wasn't limited to just this." After being busy for a couple of days, I took the opportunity to visit Gusen's home on Saturday. I had almost forgotten where they lived before Gusen became successful. All I remembered was that later on, Gusen had moved them into the biggest and best villa. I entered carrying many gifts. His uncle greeted me with a smile and made light-hearted jokes. Everything was the same as in the past, and they were as warm as ever. After chatting for a while, I helped his aunt back to her room to rest. With tears in her eyes, she said, "Su, you are so kind and virtuous. If only our son could marry someone like you." I didn't respond. Being called virtuous wasn't necessarily a compliment. After tidying up, I was about to say goodbye and head home when his aunt suddenly grabbed my hand. "Su, could you help me find a necklace in the room next to Sun's?" I nodded, but missed the guilt flashing in her eyes. I entered that room and quickly found the necklace she mentioned in the cabinet. Just as I was about to stand up, I heard a noise behind me. I turned around quickly, only to see the door was firmly shut, and a growing unease began to swell within me. I tentatively asked, "Uncle, Aunt, could you open the door for me?" From outside, his aunt's voice came, Su, you and Son have a misunderstanding that needs to be resolved. Don't blame your aunt, I just want you two to make things right." My heart felt like it had suddenly plummeted from a great height. The anxiety I felt was now confirmed. Su, don't bother trying to leave. This room was modified by your uncle and it's not easy to open by most people. At that moment, I didn't know how to feel. I felt as though my body was sinking into an icy lake, continuously falling deeper. I took out my phone, and as expected, there was no signal. She wasn't sick. This was a setup. They even prepared this room knowing that I would come to fetch something for them. They went to great lengths to lock me in here. Without hearing my response, my uncle also spoke. Su, don't worry, we don't mean to harm you. Sun will be back soon, and you can have a good talk." Alright, I had no room to refuse. When Gusen returned, I was sitting on a chair inside the room, expressionless, staring at the door until I heard noises outside. The door was suddenly opened from the outside. Revealing Gusen's face, he rushed in and hugged me tightly, breathing heavily. Susu, you still care about me, right? My parents lied to you saying I had a car accident, and you came running without a second thought. If it really came to that, you'd still be by my side. I let him hold me, motionless, after a while. He still hadn't let go. I gave a forced, sarcastic smile. Gusun, are you despicable? He stiffened. A good horse doesn't eat the grass behind it, much less a patch of grass that's rotten from the root. Your parents imprisoning me is illegal. Do you know that? I asserted firmly. He opened his mouth, speechless. You know, I continued, and you know that the reason they tricked me here, pretending you were sick, was a lie. Yet you pretend not to know. As if that would absolve you from any involvement. I shouldn't have harbored any illusions about your parents. Your whole family is just as rotten. His aura turned cold and harsh. He gripped my chin tightly, forcing me to look up at him. When Sue, don't repeatedly test my limits. Didn't you used to adore me the most? That was before I understood, I replied. Before, I didn't appreciate your feelings, but now I do. I realized that the person I liked was not the imaginary Xiaoyun-chun, but the real you by my side. Can we start over? I know last time Shen Qinglan pretended to be your boyfriend, and you two weren't really dating. If it were my past life, before I had made up my mind to sign the divorce papers, this statement would have moved me immensely, but some words, when spoken too late, become meaningless. I threw his own words from his past life back at him. Gusun, stop pretending. Xia Yunchun was such a good girl, and you ruined it. How could you be so useless? Gusen's voice was strained. She's good, but it's only you I like. She doesn't understand me. She thinks I'm not ambitious enough, that I can't make a comeback. She never acknowledged me and always compared me unfavorably to self-made executives. He didn't really love me that much. The reason why the unattainable is called the moonlight is because, like the moon, it hangs high and is forever out of reach. People always yearn for what they can't have, and now, Xia Yunchun had come back. Just like I once did, she stood by Gusun as he started his business, aiming to build a business empire. They had their moments of happiness, just like any ordinary couple. Xia Yunchun also comforted him and supported his entrepreneurial efforts, but unexpectedly, Xia Yunchun was different from me. She preferred motivational encouragement. Remember Zhang, whose family went bankrupt and he started a business. He negotiated with other executives daily, drank till midnight, hardly ever sober. Nearly drank himself to death once, and Wang, whose company is now doing well, his company went bankrupt twice, and he nearly committed suicide, but he still made it through. You should learn from their experiences, especially since you have a background in finance. Starting a business shouldn't be too hard for you. I used to be much gentler and more thoughtful. That's not who I am. I'm more impulsive. Being in love changed me. But I've come to my senses now. Smiling, I said to him. Isn't she right, Gusun? No one wants you, but I'm wanted. Okay. Gusun's eyes were moist, and he struggled to speak. In this life, without my help, that largest order from Shen Qinglan might never have been his. That was the key to his initial success, but what's gone is gone, and nothing can amend it. Angered, he slammed the door as he left, leaving only these words behind. When Sue, I hope you can see things clearly. I don't socialize much normally, lately. I've mostly been in contact with Shen Qinglan since he's the president of the company, and tomorrow is Sunday. Perhaps no one will even notice I'm not around. I curled up in the chair, quietly staring at the tiny window on the wall. The moonlight outside was faintly visible. A soft noise snapped me out of my thoughts. I paused for a moment. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from above. Wen Xiu. You didn't even react to the sound. Why are you so dazed? I looked up and saw a figure who shouldn't have been there. Shen Qinglan opened the window. He leaned in, his expression teasing yet somewhat comical, but I sharply noticed that he seemed angry. President Shen, why are you here? He retorted. If I didn't come, who knows how long you'd wait before escaping. You could delay so much work. The evil capitalist. 1 second, 2 seconds, quite some time passed, and we looked at each other in silence. I suddenly asked, President Shen, did you call the police? He raised an eyebrow. You actually thought about calling the police? Of course, I have to call. They imprisoned me and restricted my freedom. Why wouldn't I call the police? Shen Qinglan muttered to himself. I thought you liked Gusun so much that you wouldn't call the police. What? Nothing. I couldn't imagine how Shen Qinglan could remain so steadily perched at that small window for so long. I quickly urged him to call the police. He tested. So should I really go? Go, please go. But time passed, and he didn't move. I looked at him, puzzled. He pursed his lips, serious for once. I'm afraid you'll be scared if I leave. Scared of what? Aren't you afraid of the dark? How did you know? I am afraid of the dark, but I had spent so much time with Gusen in my previous life. He would say to me, what's there to be afraid of in the dark? Can't you stop being so melodramatic? So, melodrama it was. Later, I forced myself not to be afraid. Gradually, it seemed I really wasn't that scared anymore. I stared at him intently, but he dared not meet my gaze. Gusen seemed to hear some noise inside the house. The moment he opened the door, Shinchinglan had already left the window high up was shut again, and the moonlight shone through. Gusen finally relaxed. Are you hungry? I didn't respond to him. I was waiting for Shinchinglan. He said he would take me out safely when the police cars arrived. The Gu family was taken aback. With the signal jammed, I couldn't make calls or communicate with anyone outside. Gusen seemed to realize something. He suddenly turned back and looked at me, calm and composed, and then saw Shen Qinglan swiftly walking over and embracing me. I stared at him, bewildered. I softly asked, Shen Qinglan, did you know me before? Knowing I was afraid of the dark, giving up his spot for me last life, being able to locate Gusen when he couldn't contact me. It was hard not to be suspicious. He stiffened slightly, his face growing more somber. I had planned to wait until I died, then put a QR code on my tombstone for you to scan and see what you had forgotten, but you found out earlier, which is really troublesome. But you don't look troubled at all. He just wasn't very willing to talk about the past now. Gusen ran away. The police couldn't find him. Shen Qinglan worried about me, personally escorting me home every day. Only when he saw the lights on in my house would he leave. For a few days, I was safe. I frowned, not understanding why Gusen ran away. This only serves to exacerbate his punishment. Although his company is small, it required substantial investment. Almost all the remaining money his family had was poured into his projects during a previous bidding event that I encountered at work. It seemed that the Shin Corporation also planned to compete. I don't know why Shin Corporation didn't win the bid in the past life. Instead, Gusen and I ended up benefiting from it. His company is now in chaos, virtually leaderless, which complicates my feelings further. Seeing the company I worked hard to build in my previous life in such a state leaves me feeling somewhat lost and distressed. Shen Qinglan knew about it before I did. He was the one who called me into his office to discuss it. Lifting his eyelids slowly, he looked at me leisurely and said, Wen-Su, how could you have fallen for such a man before? I shrugged. I don't know. You take him if you want. He clenched his molars and suddenly laughed out of frustration. I certainly don't want my future children to have a criminal record. I know the top ophthalmologists globally. I can send you for a checkup for free. How can you not see a good man when he's right in front of you? I used to be as timid as having a criminal record when I was with Gusen. These past few days, I've been extremely busy, and Gusen hasn't shown up. Soon, I won't have to work for someone else. I won't live for others. I am capable, so why should I serve others? Shen Qingli supports my decision. He says that if a company fears its employees' abilities or worries about them starting their own businesses, that company won't last long. The streetlights were dim. Shen Qingli dropped me off at the entrance of my residential area, and I asked him to let me out here. Lately, the security guards have been assuming he's my boyfriend, and I didn't want to cause any misunderstandings. Shen Qingli softly said, okay, I wouldn't want to keep you from finding a boyfriend. I braced myself and walked into the residential area on my own. It was only when I got near my home that I remembered the light at the entrance was broken, which made me uneasy. Just as I reached the stairwell, a hand reached out from the darkness before I could react. I was pulled into the stairwell alcove, another hand covering my mouth so tightly I couldn't make a sound. In the moment our breaths mingled, I thought I heard the intense beating of his heart. I was too familiar with Gusen in my past life. It didn't take long for me to guess it was him, even though he was still wanted by the authorities. Gusen, I said. He slowly released his hand, breathing heavily. His heartbeat racing, his eyes, dark as deep pools, fixed intently on mine. I tried to stay calm. Gusen, don't make a mistake. His voice trembled again and again, like a lost child, full of confusion and helplessness. I think I already made a mistake. What should I do? Was he referring to giving up Xia Yunchun, or the fact that he and his parents had locked me up? He slowly grasped my hand, his palm sweaty and trembling. In the darkness, I noticed his eyes were slightly red. His voice shaking, he asked, Su, why did you push me towards someone else? Don't you like me anymore? My mind exploded. I clenched my fist to keep calm. He slowly continued, these days, I keep dreaming of you. At this point, Gusun should not have liked me yet, he added, in the dreams, I clearly realize it's you and me, but those scenarios have never happened before. I looked towards the stairs, thinking about how to escape, and replied nonchalantly, like what, in the dream? Yunchen never came back to the country but died abroad. I pretended to be mute, and later, you insisted on marrying me. In my dreams, it was always you by my side, helping me fight my way back to the top. You even risked your health, drinking with corporate executives until you developed a bleeding ulcer, all to help me secure orders. I slowly looked up at him, almost in disbelief. These were things that had actually happened in our past life. How could he possibly dream of them? I kept my expression neutral. If all you have to tell me about are these baseless accusations, then you've got the wrong person. He grabbed my arm, his eyes trembled and his whole being seemed shattered. Shushu, you've been reborn too, haven't you? I asked calmly. Gusun, have you lost your mind? At my words, he seemed to truly lose it. When I found out you liked Shen Qinglan but pushed me towards Xia Yunchen, I was already mad. He bent down and forcefully kissed me. I struggled and turned my face away, so he only kissed my cheek. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. I only felt the breeze from a punch and didn't even see how it was delivered. Gusun was already on the ground, still staring straight at me. Enduring the pain, he pleaded with a trembling voice, Shushu, please don't leave me. I looked away, towards Shen Qinglan, and stepped forward to tightly wrap my arms around his waist. I could feel his body tense uncomfortably. I whispered, why did you come? He replied, you didn't respond to my message. I was worried something had happened to you, so I came to check. I breathed a sigh of relief. Gusun was apprehended and taken into custody for illegal detention. Although he was an accessory, he was the main instigator and had even tried to escape the law, which added to his charges. He wanted to see me. I went. He had shaved his head, his former glory was gone. His eyes were full of despair and guilt. Shushu. The person I owe the most in my life is you. I'm sorry for how poorly I treated you in our past life. If I had remembered my past memories sooner and treated you better, would everything have been different? I cut him off, my eyes fixed on him, my voice low and emotionless. No, from the moment I decided on divorce, I never planned on liking you again. His eyes dimmed further, and he looked much more haggard. Gusun, the one you should really be apologizing to is the company you founded. Because that too was once our hard work. I no longer paid attention to Gusun, he truly faded from my life. Shen Qinglan often took me to dinners. I wanted to refuse, but he raised his eyebrows and said, don't you want to start your own business? How can you do that without understanding the market? I understood all too well, but dared not say it. As the dinner was wrapping up, and I went out to pay the bill, I overheard a conversation about me. President Shen, you like this young lady so much. Why not make her your secretary? They liked to play favorites, bringing people they liked into their offices to work closely as personal secretaries. Shen Qinglan raised an eyebrow, his voice indulgent. She has her own capabilities, why confine her to my side? All I can do is provide her a platform to showcase her talents. They looked at each other and chuckled awkwardly. Most didn't take it seriously, thinking she was just another woman. Much later, it was this woman who founded a leading domestic company for women's products. When they saw me making money, they became envious and came to seek advice on making money. I smiled and said, if you want to make money from women, start by respecting them, of course. That was a story for another time. I clenched the fabric of my coat tightly outside the door. When leaving, Shen Qinglan, as usual, walked me to my doorstep, but I didn't get out of the car. I turned, my gaze intense, staring at him. Shen Qinglan, you mentioned we had met before. Can you tell me about it? His dark lashes trembled slightly. You wouldn't want to know. Who knows what a fish enjoys if not another fish? Finally, he was willing to talk. His entrepreneurial journey hadn't been smooth sailing. After his business failed, he didn't even have $5 to his name. Sitting at the entrance of a convenience store, I watched the sky. When I came out of the store, I mistook him for a homeless man and took the initiative to buy him some food and drink. It was just a simple gesture for me, hardly memorable, but he never forgot it. Later, when he saw me with Gusun, he willingly gave way. I pursed my lips. Why didn't you mention this at the start? Did you not want to recall the hardships of starting your business? I could understand that. He shook his head and looked away. I don't see that period of starting my business as a stain, it's just, I always wanted to appear strong and unblemished in your eyes. I placed my hands on the sides of his face, turning his head back to look at me, then slowly, I embraced him, who is always strong. No one is forever weak. And the person you were then has shaped the person you are today. Your success in starting a business is truly cool, really. I nodded vigorously, really, I think you're both cool and impressive. He pondered for a while, meeting my gaze with a slight smile that seemed to hook the air. A ticklish, captivating voice followed. Consider making my position permanent. Huh, it's a great deal, you can't lose. A ripple of laughter filled my eyes. Then I suppose I'll just have to accept the hardship. There's always someone who appears when I'm covered in scars and my heart is in shambles, giving me the chance not to lose the ability to love and be loved. Later, he said that day his throat was almost smoking. Luckily, I liked it. Story 2. In the 5th year of my marriage to Gu Qing, the affair he had with a girl he kept in a hotel was exposed, and everyone knew about it, to prevent her from being labeled as the other woman. Gu Qing brought me the divorce papers and said, Teacher Jian helped me in the past, and on his deathbed, he asked me to take care of Jianxi. Now that this has come to light, I cannot ignore it. Over the years, Jianxi was always Gu Qing's first choice. In my past life, when I heard this, I broke down completely, made a huge scene, and refused to divorce. It wasn't until I was diagnosed with severe depression that Gu Qing, influenced by Jianxi's words, that I didn't seem sick. Concluded I was faking it, believing I was trying to manipulate him and setting a trap to accuse me of infidelity. He filed for divorce directly. That's when I realized I could never compete with someone he felt indebted to, and, in despair, I took my own life. When I opened my eyes again, I signed the divorce papers without hesitation. Chu Tang, after this matter is settled, can we remarry? I was sitting absent-mindedly on a stone bench in the courtyard of the villa when Guhan, accompanied by Jianxi, approached me. Just 3 hours earlier, Jianxi had been exposed by paparazzi as potentially being Guhan's lover. The entire internet was digging into her past, cursing her as the homewrecker who intruded into my sweet relationship with Guhan. Guhan's loving husband persona had completely collapsed, and the stock prices of Gu Corporation began to fluctuate. In my past life, when Guhan brought the divorce papers to me, I was so furious that I tore out all the roses he had planted for me in the yard and hysterically questioned him about his relationship with Jianxi. He was merely the daughter of a mentor, and there were a million other ways he could have handled this situation, but he chose to sacrifice me, just to prevent Jianxi's depression from worsening. What Guhan didn't know was that during the time this scandal was brewing, I too was diagnosed with moderate depression. Chu Tang, Guhan called me again, bringing me back to the present. I looked down, my gaze falling on the divorce papers on the stone table. He knelt on one knee at my feet, his deep eyes looking up at me, his warm palms enveloping my hands. His tone was coaxing. Chu Tang, do it for me, okay? We'll announce to the public that our marriage has been in name only for over a year now, and we've been planning to divorce but just hadn't found the right moment. I didn't respond immediately. Behind him, Jianxi, in a white dress and wearing Guhan's jacket over her shoulders, had pale lips and red-rimmed eyes. Chu Tang, please help me, she pleaded. My mother committed suicide due to depression caused by cyberbullying. I don't want to follow in her footsteps. Sister, I'm kneeling to you, please help me. As she was about to kneel, Guhan quickly stood up and helped her, then protectively pulled her into his arms. With a grim expression, he whispered sternly, what are you doing? Jianxi choked up, her voice frail and tearful, then lowered her tear-filled eyes. I just wanted to make it easier for you, sister. Guhan's brows furrowed with impatience as he looked at me, the affection in his eyes completely fading. Chu Tang, I'm not here to discuss this with you. I've already decided on this matter, and if you're unwilling to divorce, then don't blame me. I calmly met his gaze, and his next words stopped short. But I knew what he was going to say. He was about to say, Chu Tang, you know what I'm capable of. I have a million ways to make you sign willingly. He was about to escalate to filing for divorce. You can't possibly win against the Gu family's lawyers. Those were his exact words in my past life, and later I was set up to be caught in bed with several male models, solidifying evidence of my infidelity. Overnight, I became branded as an adulterous woman, enduring all the public scorn, and he, along with Jianxi, emerged as the innocent victims. I'll sign. But you have to agree to one thing, I said after a long pause. Guhan looked up at me, nodded in agreement. and handed me a pen. I took it and signed my name on the divorce papers without any hint of emotion. "Aren't you going to look at the agreement?" Guhan asked. Frowning, I smiled. No need. He was practically left with nothing, giving me all his property, all for Jianxi, to repay a debt of gratitude. "Let's make time to visit the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow." "Okay," I said. Guhan's hand paused slightly as he held the divorce papers, his eyes looking lost for a moment, but ultimately, he said nothing. As they left, Jianxi turned back to give me a mocking look, her thin lips silently mouthing, "You lost, and I did lose. I lost a lifetime, so now I didn't want to lose any more." A short while later, my phone lit up with a message from Guhan. "Today was hard on you, Chu Tang. I'm sorry. After this is over, I will give you a grand wedding ceremony, and we'll remarry. I can't just watch Jianxi's depression worsen, you understand, right?" Reading his message, I couldn't help but laugh, tears in my eyes. It was the same in my past life. Guhan, in an effort to force me into divorce, conspired with his friends while drunk, but he forgot that his friends were also my friends. Jiang Yuan earnestly advised Guhan not to sacrifice his own marriage for Jianxi, and yet, he also mediated with me, trying to make me sympathize with Guhan, describing him as a man of great loyalty. Back then, it was Jianxi's father who saw potential in Guhan, investing in him and helping him start his business. Without that, Guhan wouldn't be where he was today. At that time, crying, I argued. Guhan could clarify this matter in 1,000 different ways, so why must it lead to divorce? Jiang Yuan fell silent. He had asked Guhan, who had said, "I have to disappoint someone. I can only let Chu Tang suffer because she loves me and can understand me. Because I loved him, I had to be the one to sacrifice." What kind of reasoning was that? Fortunately, I still had a chance. Whenever it came to anything about Jianxi, Guhan always handled it particularly quickly. He had just signed the divorce papers with me by day, and by night, he had arranged a press conference, having his assistant invite me to attend to clarify things. I hadn't even spoken yet, thinking I would refuse. His assistant luckily relayed Guhan's message to me. "Miss Chu Tang, you should attend this press conference, if not for Mr. Gu, then for your own reputation," he said. I paused for a second, then let out a scoff. Guhan was threatening me. He was trying to use the same tactics from my past life to force me into a corner, to tarnish my reputation and leave me struggling under public scrutiny. In the end, I would have no choice but to bow and yield. I had never quite understood why. Does Guhan really see me as his wife, or as his enemy? Now he wants to publicly clarify our relationship. I am no exception. The press conference was arranged in the most luxurious hotel lobby in northern Beijing, and the invitees were the most influential journalists in the industry. When Jianxi, dressed in a cheongsam, appeared arm in arm with Guhan, the reporters swarmed them instantly. Guhan instinctively protected Jianxi behind him, smiling as he blocked the microphones for her. "Please wait, I will answer all your questions one by one. Can you please make some room now?" His voice was gentle, and as he looked up, he caught sight of me, also surrounded by reporters. When our eyes met, I faintly hoped that Guhan would extricate me as well, but the next second, he casually shifted his gaze away, smiling as he led Jianxi to the stage, as if he had never seen me. I smirked sarcastically. The reporter nearest to me, likely an intern, timidly handed me the microphone, asking, "Miss Chu Tang, did you really divorce Mr. Gu?" "Yes," I replied with a smile and a nod. The intern adjusted his glasses. "But you and Mr. Gu met in high school, dated for 7 years, and were married for 5 years. Last month, Mr. Gu even spent a fortune to buy you an island named after you." I continued to smile, though my eyes did not reflect the same cheerfulness. That was what he owed me, for missing my birthday to take care of the sick Jianxi. It was a make-up gift. In my past life, I took pride in this gesture, only to later discover that it was Jiang Yuan's idea. The island was picked by Guhan's assistant, and he didn't even know where the island was. "Do you still love Mr. Gu now?" She looked at me nervously, and the surrounding reporters quieted down. Even Guhan on stage was looking at me. He slightly furrowed his brow. I merely glanced at him calmly and said with a smile, "Not anymore." The interview didn't last until the end. After Guhan clarified that our marriage had been in name only a year ago, I left the scene. Overnight, I became Guhan's unwanted second-hand goods, and Jianxi became the only innocent victim in this public controversy. The interview topped social media for several days, with the topic remaining hot, especially the words spoken by Guhan. Chu Tang and I had planned to divorce a year ago, but the timing wasn't right. We intended to handle it quietly, but now it has affected an innocent person, so we had no choice but to clarify publicly. Miss Jianxi is not the homewrecker of our relationship, she is the only concern of my teacher in this world. It's only right for me to take care of her, and I hope everyone can view this matter rationally. Some fans were led to believe that the reason for the rupture of my relationship with Gu Han was that I could not tolerate a pure sibling-like bond, and I misinterpreted their so-called kindness. They also said I was petty, not magnanimous enough. Despite 5 years of marriage, I hadn't learned a bit of Gu Han's loyalty and righteousness. The topic fermented for several days. I became the target of public criticism. After collecting the divorce certificate from the Civil Affairs Bureau, Gu Han stopped me. Don't take to heart what's said online, it won't be long before everyone forgets. I stopped in my tracks, unable to help but let out a light laugh. 5, 6, 7. I see you. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Being similarly insulted on social media. Why is the difference so stark? Chu Tang, it's almost New Year in 2 months. How about we remarry at the beginning of next year? He looked at me, about to approach, but I stepped back, my expression indifferent as my gaze shifted to the reporters blocked by the bodyguards not far away. Gu Han seemed to realize something was amiss and stopped where he was. Gu Han, I'm going back to Harbor City. You haven't been back in a long time. It's good to go back. I'll come to pick you up for the new year. I'm not coming back, I said calmly, cutting off Gu Han. His smile froze, confusion flickering in his eyes. I continued, when I agreed to sign the divorce papers. You promised me something, it's time to fulfill it. Gu Han stared at me blankly. When I was reborn, it took me only a few seconds to reconcile the love and hatred I felt for Gu Han. The moment I saw the divorce papers, I thought about tearing them up and causing a scene, but in the end, reason prevailed. After a while, I smiled slightly. Gu Han, I hope you never appear in front of me again. After Chu Tang finished speaking with a smile and retreated into the crowd, Gu Han was slow to react. For a moment, he felt an inexplicable panic, as if he was about to lose something very important. Just like the day Chu Tang calmly signed the divorce papers, feeling a vague unease, she didn't make a fuss. It seemed she had foreseen all the outcomes. Just recently, Chu Tang had made a huge fuss because he forgot her birthday, and he even got slapped by her. He thought it was a sham divorce. Chu Tang would go crazy and cause a scene. He was even prepared for it, but she didn't. Picking up the pen, her expression was as still as dead water. At that moment, he thought about stopping Chu Tang, but in the end, he did nothing. He thought it didn't matter. Chu Tang loved him, it was just a fake divorce, and he would make it up to her later. But it wasn't the same with Jianxi. She couldn't suffer any harm if it weren't for Jianxi's father recognizing his talent, risking being ousted by the shareholders to invest in his project, and helping him grow into one of the emerging elite in Jingbei. He wouldn't have achieved today's successes, nor would he be worthy of Jianxi. On Jianxi's father's deathbed, he hoped Gu Han would ensure Jianxi's life was safe and well. He didn't want to be a treacherous villain. Jiang Yuan once asked him, if one day, Jianxi and Chu Tang both fell into a cliff, who would you save? He laughed then, thinking the question was absurd. He would save Jianxi, but he would die with Chu Tang. Jiang Yuan laughed with him, but then he asked himself, what if Chu Tang doesn't want to die? Gu Han, you can't just because Chu Tang likes you, always take her for granted. If she can't feel your love, she will also despair. That day he dismissed it. He never took those words to heart. Unexpectedly, in the end, they came true. In the night, Gu Han returned to the villa once again. Since marrying him, Chu Tang had always lived in the villa on the mid-mountain. She was an outstanding painter, crowned a prodigious young artist at the age of 10 for her transcendent landscape painting, and everyone felt her mastery in traditional Chinese painting was extraordinary, destined to excel in this field, which indeed she did. Only after marriage, Chu Tang's style of painting had changed. No longer as before, Chu Tang's teacher had tried to guide her with dedication, but the impact was minimal. Eventually, Chu Tang gave up painting and even resisted picking up a paintbrush. Gu Han entered Chu Tang's studio. He paused for a moment when he saw the landscape painting on the easel. The painting was vivid, though rendered in just a few strokes. When Chen's mother saw the light on in the studio and noticed Gu Han, she was slightly surprised and greeted him, "Sir, Gu-han looked up. When did my wife paint this? Chen's mother responded, the day you came back with Miss Jian. Gu-han nodded, his lips curving into a smile that he couldn't bring himself to complete. After leaving the studio, he returned to the room he shared with Chu Tang, reminding himself repeatedly that their divorce was only a pretense. Once the storm passed, he planned to propose to Chu Tang again and give her a grand wedding, but somehow, his heart still felt empty. He dismissed everything Chu Tang had said in anger today as mere nonsense. Their home was in Beijing North, how could she not return? Knock, knock. The door to the master bedroom suddenly sounded. Gu-han, sitting at the foot of the bed, looked up to see Jianxi. She stood at the doorway in her thin clothes, her face slightly flushed, quietly watching Gu-han. Why are you here? Jianxi pursed her lips. I was scared staying alone in the hotel, so I came to find you. Is that so? She spoke, eyes downcast. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Gu-han frowned slightly but replied, it's okay, it's getting late. I'll ask Chen's mother to prepare a guest room for you to stay in, he said as he was about to call for her. Jianxi stepped forward into the room, her eyes soft and pleading as she looked at Gu-han. Brother Han, I don't want to stay in the guest room, is that okay? She asked softly. Gu-han's frown deepened, he was about to refuse, but seeing her reddened eyes, he softened. When my plane landed in the city, it was Chu who came to pick me up, years ago, at 18. He saved a girl but was falsely accused of assault and sentenced to 3 years. With a criminal record, no company was willing to hire him. I met him at an art exhibition. He never interacted with others, always keeping his gaze down. If people approached him, he would just shy away. One night, as I was heading home, I encountered some thugs and was nearly assaulted, but he happened to pass by. I thought he would just watch indifferently, but he didn't hesitate for a moment. That day I asked him, what if I turned on you too? He just gave a bitter smile, then I'd accept it. With my family's influence, I helped clear his name, and on the day the truth was revealed, he stood at a distance, eyes red, bowing in thanks as he looked at me. 3 years in prison hadn't eroded his kindness. My father, grateful for his act of saving me, extended an olive branch and arranged for him to join the company. Starting from the bottom, he is now one of my father's most trusted aides. Miss, it's been a long time, Sinchu said, wearing a trench coat as he took my suitcase. I nodded, feeling a strange tinge of sourness at the tip of my nose. 5 years ago, I married Gu-han and moved north with him. At the time of my accident, he was sent by my father to Country A for a closed training session. I never saw Chu again until my death. Miss, are you planning to leave again after this return? He asked me. I replied, no, I'm not leaving. Chu chuckled, Mr. Chu knows you're back and he's very happy about it. Suddenly, I felt a momentary shock. My hand tightened in my pocket, and a tinge of bitterness colored my heart. By then, my divorce with Gu-han had become public knowledge. Worried that I would be wronged, my father flew from the port city to Jingbei overnight. He tried to persuade me earnestly. Gu-han never really thinks things through. He chose to collaborate with the old man from the Jian family instead of accepting your help. To put it nicely, he didn't want to rely on you. But isn't he still relying on someone by taking the Jian family's investment? Xiao Tang, it's over. And Gu-han isn't right for you. He wanted to take me back to the port city, but I refused, crying and insisting on staying. Through tears, I said, I love Gu-han, I don't want a divorce. Why should I sacrifice myself for his gratitude? Even if it kills me, I absolutely won't leave. I'm not going anywhere. Eventually, my father was so upset by my stubbornness that he suffered a heart attack and was rushed to the ICU, receiving several critical condition notices. Overnight, my mother's hair turned white. When my father woke up, he said nothing, but I knew he was disappointed in me. As my mother was leaving, she still tried to persuade me. Your father has never interfered with any of your decisions over the years. But Gu-han is not a good man. At that time, I wouldn't listen to anything and stubbornly continued on my destructive path. It cost me dearly to finally understand. I wasn't that important to Gu-han. Are they all doing well? I asked Sinchu. Sinchu nodded. The group is developing very well. Mr. Chu and his wife are also very healthy. I smiled and met his cold gaze. Thank you, Sinchu. Thank you for fulfilling my filial duties on my behalf. Sinchu shook his head. He said it was his duty. If it hadn't been for my father and I helping him out back then, he might have died in some forgotten corner long ago. On social media, hot topics continue to emerge relentlessly, from Jianxi being Gu-han's mistress. It has now turned into accusations of me being heartless and ungrateful. Yesterday, paparazzi caught a photo of me and Sinchu at the airport. Now they are saying that I had an affair long ago, which is why my relationship with Guhan fell apart. I couldn't help but laugh when I saw. As I lowered my eyes, the phone screen showed a photo sent by Jianxi from a burner account, a photo of her spending the night at the mountain villa. Last night Guhan asked me to stay over. What do you think he'll do tonight? Guhan is a very responsible person. Now that the shackles are gone, Xiao Tang, your husband is mine now. She tried to provoke me, but my heart was already still. Sin Chu poured me a cup of tea and glanced worriedly at my phone screen, saying in a deep voice, "Miss, I will reclaim the justice for the grievances you've suffered." I didn't respond to him, but instead asked, "I heard your father introduced several distinguished young ladies to you, intending for you to settle down. Why did you refuse?" Sin Chu seemed surprised by my question, his eyes lowered, his fingertips rubbing the rim of the teacup. After a long silence, I asked again, "Is it because of me?" He suddenly looked up, meeting my gaze before guiltily looking away. Though I hadn't seen Sin Chu in 5 years, every birthday, I received a generous gift from him. He lavished money freely, and from time to time, he transferred money into my account. He gave me almost everything he earned. I refused many times, but he persisted. Finally, I called him and for the first time, I lost my temper with him. I said, "Sin Chu, you saved me once, and I helped you once, we're even. It was your father who let you into the company. But you've gotten to where you are today on your own. You don't owe me anything, I'm not your creditor, and by doing this, you're only endangering my marriage and causing Guhan to misunderstand our relationship." After that, Sin Chu stopped transferring money to me. His gifts were also just symbolic gestures. "Sin Chu, I've told you that you don't owe me anything." No sooner had I finished speaking than Sin Chu pursed his lips and said, "No." "What?" He looked at me, a slight smile playing on his lips, his face calm, his eyes filled with affection. "I adore you, miss. I know I'm worlds apart from you, miss. I've never dared to hope that you would look back at me, but my heart belongs to you, and I don't want to lie to myself or hold anyone else back." As Sin Chu's voice trailed off, I looked at him quietly. He was the same age as me, but much more mature. When I first saw him, he was timid and out of place. Now, he has become a pillar of the company, the most valued person by my father. Last night, when I returned to the old mansion, my father talked with me for a long time about the future of the company, my future. Finally, he asked me 2 questions. The first was, "Do you still like Guhan?" I shook my head, giving a negative answer, but to the second question, I remained silent. He asked me, "Would you be willing to marry Sin Chu? My father is planning to retire, and although Sin Chu has been with my father for many years, he is not originally from our family." I was somewhat confused at first, but now I also have an answer. "Sin Chu, will you marry me?" 2 days later, in northern Beijing, Guhan sat in the studio, looking down at the day when Chu Tang accepted that intern's interview. Curiously, the intern asked her, "Do you still love Mr. Gu?" Chu Tang smiled and responded, "Not anymore." Those simple 3 words, however, stirred an inexplicable oppression in him. He replayed that clip countless times, trying to find something in Chu Tang's eyes, but to no avail. Frustrated, he pulled up his chat with Chu Tang, only to realize that the last message stopped when he reminded her to pick up the divorce certificate at the civil affairs office at 9 o'clock, to which she replied with a simple okay, and then there was nothing. Chu Tang used to stick to him, sharing everything with him big or small, and he would respond in time. He scrolled back through the records, later, many times. It was just Chu Tang talking to herself. Occasionally, he would reply briefly with an okay or I know. Work at the company was busy. After teacher Jian passed away, Jianxi suffered from depression and repeatedly attempted suicide. He simply couldn't manage everything. Suddenly, Jiang Yuan sent a message, "Chu Tang is getting married to Sin Chu." Guhan stood up abruptly, accidentally knocking over a nearby easel. As he hurried to pick it up, a medical report was pressed under the drawing board. He paused for a second, and when he read all the content, his fingertips trembled. "The patient exhibits severe emotional fluctuations, with recurring suicidal thoughts. He was suffering from severe sleep disorders, and upon evaluation, it was determined that he had tendencies of moderate depression." That marked the date when he proposed a fake divorce to Chu Tang. "Brother Han, what happened?" Jianxi, hearing the commotion, hurried from the master bedroom to the studio. When she saw the medical report in Guhan's hands, a scheming glint passed through her eyes. "Can I take a look at this report?" Jianxi asked softly. Guhan didn't say anything, only feeling a recurring pain in his chest. She took the opportunity to grab the medical report, flipped through a few pages, then feigned relief, patting Gu-han on the shoulder and comforting him. "Brother Han, don't worry, brother, have you forgotten? I also suffer from depression. You've seen what it's like when I have an episode. I saw your sister the other day, she looked so healthy, not at all like she was ill. Maybe she was just too angry and used a fake medical report to deceive you." She looked at Gu-han, just as she was about to continue. Gu-han, pressing down his emotions, took the report back from her hands. He had just walked a few steps when something occurred to him, and he turned back to her. "After tomorrow, you shouldn't stay in the master bedroom. Chu Tang will make a fuss if she finds out." After he spoke, she stood frozen in place. By the time she reacted and chased after him, "Brother Han," Gu-han had already gone downstairs. In such a hurry he even forgot his coat. Regardless of whether the medical report was real or fake, regardless of whether Chu Tang was going to marry Sun Chu, at that moment, his only thought was to see Chu Tang and bring her back home. Sun Chu took our wedding very seriously, personally overseeing every detail. By day he would rush between the company and the wedding venue. By night, he sat in the living room, painstakingly writing invitations. "Sun Chu, you should let the assistant handle these matters, you're already so busy with work." "There's no need to go to all this trouble," I said, holding a cup at the top of the stairs. Looking down at him in the living room, he put down his pen, smiled warmly at me, and said, "No matter what, I want to give the best to the lady. I know I might not be in the lady's heart, but she is at the very top of mine." The moment our eyes met, I was momentarily dazed. My heart stirred for the first time in a long while. "Lady, don't feel burdened, just be the beautiful bride." Sun Chu continued to smile, his gaze not hiding his feelings any longer. Finally, I smiled back and nodded. What I hadn't anticipated was that Gu-han would find his way to Harbor City, just as Sun Chu and I were coming out after trying on the wedding attire. I saw Gu-han standing under an opposite camphor tree. He was dressed in a simple white shirt, his hair disheveled, his face slightly pale, devoid of any sparkle in his eyes. His gaze lingered on Sun Chu's and my intertwined hands for a moment before shifting away. Gu-han forced a smile and looked at me. "Chu Tang, I've come to take you back home. Let's not wait until next year. How about we go back now and remarry?" As he spoke, he took a few steps towards us. Sun Chu instinctively moved to shield me, but I stopped him. I straightened his slightly crooked tie and said softly, "Go wait for me in the car. I'll be back soon. Mom made your favorite dish tonight. Let's go home together later." Sun Chu looked down at me, a slight smile on his lips, and replied, "Okay." He then glanced briefly at Gu-han before walking towards the direction of the garage. At that moment, it was just Gu-han and me left by the roadside. He subconsciously moved closer to me, but I discreetly stepped back a few paces and softly said, "Mr. Gu, let's keep some distance between us. Otherwise the paparazzi might catch us. Then there will be rumors on social media about me endlessly entangling with my ex-husband." No matter when, people always seem to be particularly harsh on women. The incident with Shi is a prime example. It was clear that Gu-han was the indecisive one from start to finish, yet in the end, I was blamed for not being magnanimous enough. "Chu Tang, Gu-han's eyes dimmed, a bitter smile not reaching his eyes. "I've already had my assistant handle the situation on the platform. I'm sorry you had to suffer. I didn't know you were facing so much trouble. I didn't know, Gu-han, you knew." I looked at him and spoke in a flat tone. If he hadn't known that public opinion could be so painful and depressing, he wouldn't have chosen to divorce me to help Jianxi. In my past life, I was framed for having affairs with several male models, and after being divorced from Gu-han, my reputation was ruined, and my career plummeted. Everyone mocked me, some even confronted me saying, "Chu Tang, after being ruined by your ex-husband like this, how can you still have the face to live?" If it were me, I would have jumped from the 18th floor, and Gu-han never really cared about her, otherwise how could he have driven her to death? Later, I suffered from insomnia night after night, sitting by the floor-to-ceiling windows watching the lights of thousands of homes. I burned down my studio. Everything Gu-han gave me was also burned. As if by doing so I could carve him out of my heart, I vented all the injustice. I hated why the boy who once filled my heart and eyes would lead me to a dead end. Eventually, I committed suicide by wrist cutting. To this day, I still remember the feeling of blood slowly draining from my body. Gu-han opened his mouth to explain, but the words wouldn't come out. In the end, he could only lower his head helplessly. "A Tang, I will make it up to you. I couldn't help but laugh. I had heard that too many times before. After Jianshi's father passed away, on the night of Guhan's engagement banquet, he left saying, "Chu Tang, Jianshi has run into some trouble, I need to go see her." On the day of the wedding, Jianshi attempted suicide again, and after sending me back to the bridal room, he didn't return all night. At that time, I wavered whether to continue this relationship. But seeing Guhan's exhausted appearance, I endured it. I loved Guhan. So I was willing to accompany him through all the hardships. Every broken promise eventually turned into, "Chu Tang, I will make it up to you properly in the future." Guhan always thought we had a lifetime ahead of us, but he forgot that love can be exhausted, in the last life. Until the end, I could no longer tell if I loved Guhan, or if it was just obsession. After a while, I said sarcastically, "Guhan, actually what I wanted was very little, but you still couldn't care for me. I am also the treasure cherished by my parents, why should I let you trample on me, so let's just forget it." As I finished speaking, I looked away and was about to leave when Guhan frantically grabbed my arm, his tall body nearly stumbled and fell, his pale thin lips parted. "I don't agree, it can't just end like this, Chu Tang, you are my wife, you can't leave me." His voice trembled at the end. I laughed, pulled out my hand. "We are already divorced, Guhan." He was forced to step down from his position at the company. "The divorce papers you forced me to sign, the threats to make me attend a press conference to clear things up, and the way you watched me go to the civil affairs office to get the divorce certificate, all of this was your doing, you can't deny that, right?" Guhan was rendered speechless. I needed to leave. As he tried to follow me again, I nodded slightly towards the direction behind him. "Mr. Gu, actually, you and Miss Jian are quite a match." Guhan's face turned pale instantly. He arrived in Harbor City in the early morning. After his assistant found Chu Tang's itinerary, he came to find her without resting for a moment. However, when he saw her in a wedding dress, laughing and playing with Sun Chu, he gradually slowed down his steps and just stood there under the camphor tree, watching. He couldn't remember when he last saw Chu Tang laugh so freely. Every time they met, they would end up arguing because of Jianxi, and gradually, he stopped going home often, either staying overnight at the company or drinking with Jiang Yuan and others all night long. So, at that moment, he was painfully aware, the words Chu Tang said at the civil affairs office that day, came from her heart. She didn't want him anymore, but he couldn't live without her. He stood outside the bridal shop for as long as the two were busy inside. He even thought about rushing in to beat Sun Chu up, warning him, "Don't covet my wife," but in the end, he couldn't take that step. He was afraid Jianxi would hate him. "Brother Han, sister has been gone for a long time." Jianxi tugged at Guhan's sleeve, bringing him back from his reverie. He looked down at her, his voice hoarse. "Why are you here? I heard sister is going to marry someone else. I was worried you'd be upset. So I came to see you," she said softly. Just about to embrace Guhan when he furrowed his brows and placed his hand on Jianxi's shoulder. In a moment, her eyes became moist. "Brother Han, sister doesn't want you, but I do, let's get married, shall we?" Guhan had never refused her any request before. She had thought that after Chu Tang divorced him, she could easily take the place of Mrs. Gu, but at that moment, Guhan's expression suddenly turned cold. "Jianxi, do you know what you're saying?" "I know, Guhan, I like you." It was the first time she openly expressed her feelings. Guhan, however, gave a pained smile, and as he smiled, tears began to flow. Jiang Yuan had warned him countless times. "Jianxi's gaze towards you is unsettling. If you don't want your marriage to be destroyed, it's better to send her away." "Guhan, you are blinded by the situation, unable to see Jianxi's true intentions. Send Jianxi away, don't let her ruin your marriage." Yet he never believed it, he really deserved it. Jianxi, in an unexpected turn, directed and performed a scandalous act. She hired people to take photos of her and Guhan entering and exiting a hotel together and then bought cyber troops to spread rumors about herself being the other woman. Social media erupted into chaos. Guhan was overwhelmed with stress. He had planned to send Jianxi abroad, but upon seeing the trending topic, he nearly strangled her on the roadside. He confronted her, demanding, "Why would you do this?" Initially, Jianxi tried to appeal to his emotions, but as she was being choked, struggling to breathe, she suddenly laughed maniacally and openly admitted, "I just wanted to be Mrs. Gu and forced Chu Tang and you to divorce." "Guhan, if you truly loved Chu Tang, I wouldn't have had a chance." Enraged, Guhan vomited blood and fainted on the spot. The incident was caught on video by passers-by and went viral online. Gu Corporation's stock plummeted, and Guhan, upon waking, was confused and was promptly ousted from his CEO position. As for Jianxi, now disgraced, she had no choice but to leave the country. Unfortunately, on her way to the airport, she died in a car accident. On my wedding day, Sinchu gave me a grand wedding, the city adorned with flowers and fireworks all night, known to everyone. When a guest joked that marrying Sinchu was the blessing of my past life, Sinchu scoffed and had the person removed from the wedding. He then boldly declared during the vows, "I am the son-in-law of the Chu family. In this life, I belong to the Chu family, and in death, I will be the Chu family's ghost." Sinchu knew I might not fully love him, but his treatment of me never wavered. On our wedding night, he held me tightly, as if afraid I would leave or disappear. Only after pressing him did I learn Guhan had committed suicide. Before dying, he had a lucid moment and sent a medical report left in his studio to Sinchu. He also wrote me a long letter. Every word was filled with his remorse. He also spoke of a nightmare he had. In the dream, he forced me to divorce, and when I refused to compromise, he schemed to have me sent to other men's beds. Eventually, I desperately committed suicide by cutting my wrists. He said that in the dream, it wasn't intentional, he just wanted me to yield, never imagining it would drive me to despair and death. He didn't know that my illness was real. He said if he had known, he would never have treated me that way. Seeing the bathroom filled with blood, his heart broke, wishing he were the one who died. The letter ended with, "Fortunately, what happened in the dream didn't occur," and another line, "I'm sorry." I scoffed. I casually threw the letter and the medical report into the trash. Miss Sinchu frowned slightly. I softly said, "The old Chu Tang was sick, but I am no longer that Chu Tang." Having left him, I also recovered from the illness. After a while, Sinchu smiled helplessly yet affectionately. I looked at him and smiled too. Fortunately, in this life, I haven't lost anything.